Let me ask you a question. Have you ever been in a conversation with a native English speaker, or maybe watching a movie without subtitles, and suddenly you feel completely lost? It's like their words just blur together into one long, confusing sound. You hear the noise, but the meaning just isn't landing. It's frustrating, right? You might feel like your English isn't good enough, or that they're just speaking way too fast. But here's the secret. The problem usually isn't your vocabulary level. The problem is how you are listening. Today, I'm going to show you exactly how to flip the switch from just hearing noise to actually understanding the message. Hello, everyone. What we are going to master today is a skill called active listening. Most people listen passively. That means they let the words wash over them like background music. But if you want to truly master this language, you need to change your approach. You need to become an active participant in the listening process, even if you aren't saying a word. Now, a lot of students ask me how to understand native English speakers when they speak so fast. The answer lies in engagement. Active listening means you are using your brain to connect the dots, not just your ears to catch sound vibrations. It requires focus, strategy, and a little bit of detective work. So, let's break down the 5 specific techniques that will transform you from a confused student into a confident listener. The first technique is something I call priming the brain. In technical terms, we call this prediction. You see, your brain is like a muscle. It works better when it's warmed up. If you jump into a listening exercise cold, your brain has to work double time to catch up. So before you press play on a podcast or start a video, take 10 seconds to predict what you're about to hear. If the title of the video is about street food in Tokyo, don't just start listening. Ask yourself, what words am I likely to hear? Probably spicy, delicious, noodles, price, or flavor. By doing this, you're activating the vocabulary you already know. You're bringing those files to the front of your mind. It's like setting the table before the food arrives. When you actually hear those words, your brain recognizes them instantly because it was expecting them. This simple 10-second habit makes the audio feel slower and much clearer because you aren't fighting to figure out the context. You've already said it. Moving on to technique number 2. This is the biggest trap for English learners. I call it the every word trap. So many of you panic because you don't understand 100% of the words. You hear a sentence, you miss one adjective, and your brain freezes. You stop listening to the rest of the sentence because you're stuck obsessing over that one word you missed. Here's the truth. You do not need to understand every single word to understand the message. Even native speakers miss words sometimes. If you want to improve your English listening skills, you have to let go of perfection. Focus on the main idea. Imagine someone tells you, I couldn't come to the dinner because I had a splitting headache. Now, maybe you've never heard the word splitting before. If you panic, you miss the point. But if you focus on the main idea, what do you know? They didn't come to dinner. Why? Because of a headache. The word splitting is just a detail. It describes the intensity, but the core message is headache. If you got that, you won. Aim to understand 60 to 70% of the content, and the rest will eventually fall into place. Now let's talk about technique number 3. This is the one most people skip because they're impatient. You need to listen more than once. Think about your favorite song. The first time you heard it, did you know all the lyrics? Probably not. You just liked the beat. The second time, you caught the chorus. The 10th time, you could sing every word. English is exactly the same. The first time you listen to a clip, your brain is just trying to survive. It's coping with the speed and the accent. You might only catch the general topic. That's normal. But don't stop there. Go back and listen a second time. Now that your brain knows the rhythm, it can focus on the vocabulary. Listen a third time, and you'll start noticing grammar structures and emotional tone. Do not treat English audio like the news, where you hear it once and move on. Treat it like music. Layer by layer, you will build comprehension. This is how you train your ears to hear the things that natives swallow or slur together. Technique number 4 is all about being a detective. We call this using context. When you hit a word you don't know, do not rush to the dictionary. That breaks your focus. Instead, look at the clues around the word. The story itself usually tells you what the word means.
Let me give you an example. If I say, I was absolutely starving, so I ate 3 huge burgers, and you don't know what starving means, look at the result. I ate 3 burgers. Do you do that when you're full? No. Do you do that when you're thirsty? No. You do that when you are very hungry. Therefore, starving must mean very hungry. Or if I say, we canceled the picnic because it started pouring. You know picnics happen outdoors. You know people cancel them when the weather's bad. Pouring is likely connected to rain. Without opening a dictionary, you've figured it out. This skill is vital because in a real conversation, you can't pause the other person to check Google Translate. Trust your logic. It's usually right. Finally, technique number 5. This is perhaps the most important one in our modern world. Stop multitasking. We all think we're great at multitasking, but we're not. If you're listening to an English podcast while you're scrolling through Instagram, writing an email, or trying to cook a complex meal, you're not learning. You're just hearing noise. Deep learning requires attention. You need to give the language your respect. I'm not saying you need to study for hours. I'm saying that 10 minutes of focused, distraction-free listening is worth more than 2 hours of background listening while you clean the house. For just a few minutes a day, put the phone away. Close your eyes if you have to. Visualize the words. When you give your brain permission to focus on just one thing, your retention rate skyrockets. Treat the audio as if you are sitting across from a friend who is telling you a secret. You wouldn't look at your phone then, so don't do it now. So, there you have it. Active listening isn't a magical talent that some people are born with. It is a set of habits. Remember, prime your brain by predicting the topic. Focus on the main ideas, not the isolated words. Listen multiple times to peel back the layers. Use context to be a vocabulary detective. And finally, give the language your undivided attention. If you start applying these 5 shifts today, I promise you, the blur of noise will start to sharpen into clear, understandable English. Thank you so much for spending your time with me today. If you found these tips helpful and want to take your fluency to the next level, please hit that like button. It really helps the channel. And don't forget to subscribe to English Glow for more strategies to master the English language. I'll see you in the next video.